whatever Judaism is envisioning is encapsulated, or let's say referenced, in different religions in different ways. So there's the Eastern traditions that don't speak about a specific person. And then there's Christianity and Islam that do. They speak about Jesus and Muhammad. And I think that both of those polarities, even though you can't say that Christianity and Islam are the same, of course not, but we still speak about the three monotheistic religions as Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. So that's kind of I would put those two notions of redemption on one side and then an Eastern one on another. And let's start with that first, because it's most different from the Jewish notion of redemption. In the East, there's a concept of nirvana where when you attain your enlightenment, you no longer have to be embodied in the world. And that becomes a goal of life, to really be able to tolerate suffering and this world in order to be freed from the world, so that one is practicing non-attachment. And that has got a lot to do with mindfulness that is also connected to a Jewish path, but not as an ultimate ideal. Jewish mindfulness and Buddhist mindfulness is a different topic, but I'm speaking here about how it applies to the Messianic era. So this notion of nirvana and being released from the cycle of reincarnation becomes an ideal. And as I taught in one of the JLI courses, Judaism believes in reincarnation, but not a recycling of souls. It's never just the same soul that came back. Whereas I think in Eastern thought, the idea is that the same soul comes back and back and back until it gets it right, and then boom, it's free, and that's its personal redemption, and that continues ad infinitum. The Rambam says that both Christianity and Islam took their notion of redemption from Judaism. And in fact, he postulates that both Jesus and Muhammad became universally famous in order to prepare the world for Mashiach. So what's the difference over there? I think is Judaism's focus on the physical. Because from a Jewish perspective, the purpose of our existence is to elevate the physical world. And Mashiach is the ultimate actualization of that goal. So the soul comes down here, not just for the purpose of the soul. The soul has its own elevation through doing work in this physical world. It's really difficult. I remember reading, what's her name? Gilbert, I think, Eat, Love, Pray. And she speaks about being somewhere, I don't know where maybe she was in Bali at the time, or she was at some ashram, and this like remarkable experience of enlightenment and the sun and the moon and the sunlight. And I'm thinking, yeah, babe, it's really easy to experience that when you've removed yourself from the world and you're secluded. It's a very different story when you're involved and engaged in the world of eating, earning a living, cooking, cleaning, taking care of children. Taking care of children will get you on track. That's going to make a real person out of you, or taking care of other people's needs. And then negotiating things, having contention with people. It's really useful for the soul. You don't want to just be at peace. You have to have disagreements and bump up and rub up against each other's needs so that we become refined. And then through that process, we actually transform the physical universe. There's a beautiful chapter in the Tanya, a seminal work of the first Chabad Rebbe, Rabbi Shimona Zalman, and in chapter 35 he speaks about this idea that Mashiach is a transformation. He develops it over various chapters, a transformation of physical matter. And I think that that is what is unique about our notion of redemption, that you're not entering nirvana, you don't get freed from your body. You actually have to bring it back down into this physical universe. And just to mention something there from the Tanya, I find it a beautiful meditation. He gives an example of oil and a wick and a flame, and he says that the wick is like our body and the flame is the light that is generated through our effort in this world as we consume the oil. And so we literally are converting oil into light, and we are the transformer. Each one of us becomes that transformer. It's a mystical process, isn't it? It's quite, I think in the world people think of it as alchemy, but that's the Jewish path. And if I say a blessing on an apple, if I just think about what's elevated by that apple, Rabbi Shimona Zalman says, I think it's in chapter 37, he says there are 600,000 root souls, and each one of them governs 1/600,000th, or impacts, rather, let's say 1/600,000th of the world. That's remarkable. I mean, that's huge. And how is that possible to say one individual could impact 1/600,000th of reality? I mean, this world and universe is so vast. How is that possible? And if you think about it, it starts to make sense. An apple, if for it to land on my table and me to lift my hand and say a blessing on it, well, the apple had to grow, and it came from a seed, which came from a tree, which came from a seed. So there's the entire history of that seed in the apple, and then there's the soil and the water, the rain, the clouds, the ocean that was elevated, etc., and rained down on that, the sunlight. But then there's also the farmer who had to pick that, or the worker who had to pick that, and all the food that that worker had to eat in order to have the energy to pick the fruit. And then the fruit had to be carried, whether it was on a wheelbarrow or a wagon. That had to be made and designed and engineered by someone and taken to a truck. And who engineered that truck, and who made the rubber for the tires and the horn for the truck, you know, all of those parts. And then that truck had to travel along the roads, and who tarred the roads? Where did the tar come from? I mean, it's just vast, you know. And then it gets to my table. Who pays the mortgage? How do we do that? What went into paying that mortgage and buying the table and the bowl and the apple, and then having the energy that I could pick it up and say a blessing? So that's remarkably transformational. Really, that is alchemy in the fullest sense, and I think that that's what Mashiach is about, this transformation of matter, where God says, look, I have a vision, and I'd so appreciate it if you could help me out. When I'm on my own, there's nothing to challenge me. So then God is Yochid, unique, singular. But he wanted to be Echad, one. The word Echad is the letter Aleph, numerical value 1, the letter Chet, numerical value 8, and the letter Daled, numerical value 4. That's one God, 7 heavens and the earth, and on this earth 4 compass directions, that x-axis. And God says, through all the heavens and on the earth, I'd love it if you could work on yourself, nullify your ego, and reveal my oneness, reveal that there's nothing other than me, even after the world has been created. That's what we mean when we say Hashem Echad, God is one. Not just there is one God. I mean, it's illogical to think differently. But that God is one. And Mashiach's coming is the result of all the work that we do and have done for generations, where God creates ex nihilo. There's something from nothing, the hiuli, Greek word, and in Torah, God creates something from nothing, and we have to reveal the nothing in the something. That's very hard. I think it's more difficult than creating something from nothing. I mean, not to undercut God's creation, and I don't know what's difficult for him. I imagine it's difficult for him to stand by and watch our suffering until he decides that the time has come. It's really challenging to nullify the ego and to break the body. That's not nirvana, and that's a uniquely Jewish notion of redemption.
Moment of Wisdom, sub-brief and life-changing moments. Join us. Subscribe to Moment of Wisdom channels on YouTube, Telegram, Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp.